Okay. Just waiting for the notifications to let us know that we're live.
Yeah.
If you've caught us live, please leave a comment. Let's know where you're joining us from. I haven't gotten any notifications yet, so
Yeah.
I am waiting for.
This is recorded or is it just live?
What did you say?
Does it give you a recording?
Yeah, it does. So there's challenges with LinkedIn. It's not streaming into LinkedIn yet. But if you're joining us from anywhere else, please let us know where you're joining us from. I'm here with Rachel. Challenges streaming to LinkedIn are okay. LinkedIn is now live. Fantastic. Great. If you're joining us from Facebook or YouTube, please leave a comment. Let me know where you're joining us from, because for some reason, the streaming software is having challenges this afternoon. Finally, live on LinkedIn. Great, got a notification for LinkedIn. Let me check YouTube. Great, live on YouTube, fantastic. And live on Facebook. All right, great, fantastic. All right, so on the Fireside Chat with me today is Rachel, and we're gonna be talking about communication skills. And hi, Andre, thank you for joining us. So we're going to be talking about communication skills and, the tips on how to improve your communication skills with some very interesting strategies and tips that Rachel has to share with us today. So let's get started. We waited a while for us to be live, and now we're live. So Rachel, tell us a bit about you. Let's get to meet you. Who's Rachel Randolph?
Hi.
Hi.
I'm so happy to be here. Thank you so much for linking me up with this. I really appreciate it. And hello, streamers. So my name is Rachel. I'm an introspective communication coach, which means that I help people use self-inquiry and mindfulness to improve their communication skills. The reason that I do this is because communication is a people thing and an internal exchange of our inner worlds to another person's inner worlds, and that's nothing can go wrong there, right? So I figured that it would be better, or my strategy or approach to coaching it would be helping people understand their internal worlds so they can effectively and confidently communicate it, establish boundaries, listen better, ask better questions, the whole thing. Thinking about it as I am the common denominator of all of my interactions, all of my relationships. So the place that I should be focusing on to improve them is myself. And so I help people do that, reframe their fears, overcome and manage social anxiety, all under the frame of introspection and mindfulness. So better interactions, regardless of the interaction or the situation that you're in, because you're good. You have control over your inner dialogue and mental peace. So I got started in this because I was really bad at it.
Oh, you were bad at communicating, right?
Horrible. I was a people pleaser. I still am to an extent, and I realized that, like, along with reading a lot of articles, I was like, okay, boundaries, okay, got it. YouTube, got it. Reading articles, and I was like, I want to talk to someone about this. I have a personal problem, and I would love to just talk to someone other than a therapist. I wanted to talk to somebody who is trained and skilled and would work out these socially anxious problems that I felt I had with communication. And I was like looking at computer screens, learning about connection. And so I started a meetup 2.5 years ago called Connect Ed, purely out of this interest and need in having a conversation about what it means to be a good communicator, just being myself, being authentic, being empathetic, any of those things. And I'm like, there's more to it. I know that there is, but I want to talk. I don't want to just read more about it and have it go in. It's a lot of input rather than like an expression.
Right.
So that's how I got started in what I do. But I'm a transplant from New York to Indianapolis. And that's the second time that I moved from a new city to start a new life from scratch. And so that's where I really kicked into gears that like, I need to build a social life. This is hard. This is hard to people, hard to make friends. And it's difficult to communicate. I don't understand myself. I don't understand anybody else.
Right.
So I started in a little bit about me.
Okay, fantastic. Thank you. So let's talk about communication, right? So communication is a skill. And it's really not just about talking or writing, like a lot of people think, I can write. I write documents, I talk to people, or that's communication. What really is communication?
The general but argued definition of it is a transfer of one internal world to another. There's so many different, people don't really like that because transfer, it sounds very transactional, but it couldn't possibly be because we're not robots. Humans are imperfect, so communication is imperfect. And at some point, communication is whatever we as individuals define and practice it as. It's a very subjective thing, in my opinion, because I recognize that we're not robots and you can't just like beep, boop, beep, run the empathy program, and now I'm an empathetic human. Like, no, these are skills that need to be taken on and practiced and implemented in real time. And also understanding that if it's in our internal world, then that's where communication lives and will be expressed from. So that's where we should be focusing on getting clear on what communication is to us as individuals. There's a lot of different definitions for it, obviously. But I think when there's issues with communication, which of course there is, and respect of other people's opinions and perspective and all these different things that people run into, I think one of the things that get in the way are all of the things that are memories of the past and our anxieties of the future right here, right at the surface. And we either suppress them when we're in an interaction, saying, okay, don't say that, say this instead, say that, I should say this. The internal chatter gets in the way. Or we just like blurt it all out and then regret that too. Say, listen, like, it's like either one or the other, but it's an identification that whatever is going on in our lives will come up one way or another. So understanding what's happening is really how I interpret communication and interpret helping others shift their frame around communication.
Fantastic. All right. So let's talk about the different types of communication. So we have verbal and the non-verbal communication. So, that's where some people, they're saying something, but they're acting out something different. So, based on your experience and, what you do, can you enlighten us on, the two types of communication, which is verbal and non-verbal communication?
So I will just say, I'm not a communication expert as communication is an industry. I am an expert at myself. I communicate, and that's what I teach people. I teach people to be an expert at themselves, and therefore improving their communication by default. Nonverbal and verbal. What's verbal? Okay, words. That's semantics. The meaning that we place on words. the meaning that we place on words is usually by the listener, not the person who said it, which is where things get interpreted and there's misunderstandings.
Yeah.
And then nonverbal is, the body language and all that stuff, but what it actually is our brains, the things that happen after an external event, the meaning and the foundation and the beliefs and the inner dialogue that's happening, and then there's feelings that are created from our thoughts about that said external event, said something happening. And that's where our nonverbals live, the subconscious interpretations of something, and then the implicit biases that will happen, and we just add it all on, and then eventually words might come out, and that's where the verbal is coming into play. But the nonverbal, God, there's like trillions of things and neurotransmitters firing off when something happens or someone says something or I say something and I'm like, wait a minute, that didn't sound right. And then anxiety over trying to either course correct or do damage control afterwards. And then verbal and nonverbal, as in, what's spoken and what's not spoken.
Yeah, that's true. Yeah. And, I find with communicating, like you said, things inside of us, sometimes we just have this bottled up anger or, anxiety or pressure or just being burnt out, and we don't know that, we're actually communicating how we feel non-verbally as well. May not be saying anything, but, we're showing it.
Yeah. When we're meeting somebody new, we are meeting and we are also showing them our internal worlds, whether we think we are or not, which is where the understanding your internal world will improve your nonverbal and your verbal communication. You'll hold yourself with more self-advocacy and confidence as you are self-referential and inquisitive and mindful. This is all mindfulness. It's not mindfulness is not a specific thing or act or a structure. Mindfulness is a non-judgmental observation of your thoughts. This can be done anytime doing anything, I believe. And I coach that it's a subjective experience, introspective. Like I couldn't possibly tell you how you're going to improve communication, how you're going to get over your own social anxiety. I coach and empower people to think that they have the tools and believe that they have the tools to improve communication skills, but to solve all of their own problems.
Fantastic. So Sharik was saying, what are your top 3 tips to develop good communication skills?
Thanks for that question, Sharik. And it's a great question. My top 3 personally, I will always add in personally, are meditation. I love to meditate, and it's not always just sitting in silence by myself. It's often prompted and guided. I love to journal, and I love to mind map, which is more structured. Journaling is unstructured, just free flow of thoughts. And then a mind map is like starting with a circle of me in the middle and then drawing lines to all the different categories of my life. And the reason that those are my 3 is because it gives me insight into what I actually think and feel in that moment, but then a practice of being able to do that any given moment. So when I'm called upon to say, do you like peanut butter, Rachel? And I'm like, I don't have to like pause and be like, it doesn't freeze. I know, I'm like, what do I think of peanut butter? I like peanut butter. How about you? And it's not a big deal. And that can be about anything, any question asked, any hold up in a conversation, getting over the awkward pause. That's all a moment to overcome, to answer your thoughts and feelings if you know what they are.
Yeah. All right. So you have some metrics that we could use to help us be better at communication to basically keep the conversation going. Yeah. So your first metric is intention. So how can we use intention to make sure that we keep our conversations going?
Yeah, I love that question.
Yeah.
Intention. I mean, where are you trying to go? Like you're in the driver's seat of a conversation. And if we if we're out of control, like our inner dialogue is in the driver's seat, good Lord, you're not going to know where you're going. But intention having like, what am I doing at this event? How did I end up in this conversation? Am I here to meet a whole bunch of people, or am I here to meet one person and have a relaxed, chill conversation, like no pressure? And having that intention in mind helps us steer the conversation or interactions any way that we choose. If we are trying to meet a lot of different people, it benefits us to be mindful of our intention, saying, hey, I was trying to meet a lot of people tonight and mingle. It was so great chatting with you. I hope to keep in touch. Or if you don't want to keep in touch, you say, it was so great chatting with you. I'm going to go mingle with some other people here tonight. That's my strategy for utilizing intention. And being honest about it is really important, because if you're dishonest, that's also at the top and forefront of your mind, trying to suppress whatever the truth is. Not going to go very well. So being mindful of your intention and letting it guide you throughout the conversation. Right. And it helps implement at all the different aspects. If you're there to talk about yourself, you're going to talk about yourself regardless. So it kind of helps to be aware of like that's where you're taking the conversation. If you're there to make a new friend, then all of the things that we've ever read about how to make a new friend, listen well, ask questions, be open, pay attention to, like all of those things will have somewhere to land. And you're like, this is what I'm doing here.
Yeah, fantastic. So how does confidence play a part in, getting better at communication?
Well, if you are in the driver's seat of your conversations, then if you're driving a car, probably know how to drive a car. If you all of a sudden get put in front of a 14-wheeler or 18-wheeler, then you're going to have a little less confidence naturally. It's not, the meaning that you put on confidence is just that, meaning. You can shift it into thinking, okay, I'm just new at this, and I don't have to be an expert communicator in all situations.
Yeah.
Nor do we have to be, because as we evolve, we learn different information about ourselves and about others. And so having a confidence is really about a competency to navigate conversation regardless of the situation you're in. And that's a self-cultivated thing. It's not transferable. It happens every time you're in a different phase of your life or situation. So confidence comes into play, and it's not this overarching thing. It's made up of many different things, right? Confidence is not just like, oh, boom, playing the confidence program now, like I've got it. No, it's cultivated, and it is self-awareness, self-reference, self-advocacy. If I get into a tuffle with somebody in a conversation, am I confident enough to be like, hey, don't talk to me like that? And enough to feel. So confidence, is huge, but a myth about it is that it's transferable. As you learn communication skills or to improve them, it's, not like everybody had great role models growing up of how communication should go and how to go about it well and go about it confidently. Like nobody really learned those things. So we're all starting from scratch.
Yeah, you're totally right. With communication skills, you just keep getting better at it, and you keep learning better ways to communicate. That's something that I've had to learn from someone who, you're still very introverted, but being able to speak to, hundreds of people and, lead and facilitate meetings and, not, choke on my words or, be anxious, right? Being able to be confident in what I'm saying, pace myself, ask questions, pause, wait for a response, answer, think quickly, so not being asked a question and you pause because you're really thinking about the answer, but you're able to think on your feet and give a good answer. Another thing is also when you meet people, say you go for like a networking event, how to quickly start conversations. Right. And, get it going, as fast as possible by asking good questions, finding common ground, fast, is something a lot of people do struggle with communication. So you're very big on, mindfulness, in helping us become better communicators rather. So tell us more about, using mindfulness, which is really just, understanding yourself and your mind and, leveraging that. So tell us a bit more about using mindfulness to become better communicators.
Yeah, thank you for continuing to draw on the mindfulness, because I tend to lose it because it's second nature to me to implement mindfulness, which is not maybe mindful of other people. But when it comes to communication, for me, like a sound bowl is really great. I'm trying to think of like how I actually use like one thing and it directly connects to another. And one is like a mind meditation of the sound bowls, because it's the dum, and then it makes you listen to the whole thing. And that's where like you're focused on that sound through the whole thing until it ends, and then there's another one. That improves your listening skills immediately, and because you're focused on that one thing happening. And so then when you're in an interaction with somebody, you can just focus until they finish the sentence. You don't have to do anything. A conversation, if somebody's talking, it's not really about you.
Yeah.
There will be mind chatter. It's an act of suppressing that mind chatter and allowing your thoughts to come and go, which they will anyways. It's not a perfect science.
Yeah.
There's no shutting it off. There's management. And so the sound bowls, for example, are one of my favorites because I have to listen to the whole thing, and then another one will happen as soon as my mind chatter starts coming back. So it's letting the dust settle and then bringing myself back to present, letting the dust settle and bringing myself back to present. And so doing that in a conversation is the same thing. Someone will say something and I'm having tons of dialogue about it. Oh, that's really interesting. I want to interrupt and say more, or ask something right now, or I don't know anything about that subject. Holy shit, I'm stuck. Letting it express and continuing to listen and check in. So that's how mindfulness in a direct way helps me. And then there's the journaling and the mind map that helps me understand what's going on with myself. So if I'm prompted to ask something or ask a question or keep the conversation going or change the subject, I know what to do about it.
Yeah.
So skills require mindfulness for sure.
All right. So how does introspection actually help us to become better communicators? And this is something that, something that you speak about, and I can relate with that because, you need to also, look into yourself and, ask yourself, some questions and find a way to become better, because it starts with the awareness, right? That I need to be better at communicating, right? And, listening and, understanding that it's not just about me, it's about the other person that's also speaking to me. So how does introspection help us to become better communicators?
So introspection is a practice of self-inquiry.
Yeah.
And like I said before, it kind of draws back. If I'm going to transfer my internal world through verbal and nonverbal communication to somebody else, it serves me to understand what I got going on, what's going on in my brain, in my life, and in this time, and stay happy with it. So yeah, if your mind was a hallway and there's lots of doors, introspection is peeking behind each of those doors. What do I think about chocolate? All the way up until, do I believe in an afterlife? And where do all of these things come from is also a benefit of introspection. Is this thought mine? Or did my dad say this 20 minutes ago? Or did my dad say this 20 years ago? Like, where are these things coming from? What are my core values? What do I believe in? What do I believe in about the world? What do I believe in about others? And all of these things are how we interact and live through communication, the verbal and nonverbal, all that comes through. If you're a more shy person, what do you believe about walking into a room that you don't feel like you can speak up? Or if you have a lot of mental chatter or are afraid of rejection, what do you believe about rejection that makes you afraid about it? Is it that they're not going to like you? Is somebody going to hurt you? Is somebody going to call you names? What has happened? Where does this belief come from? And why is it governing your thoughts at this time? So that's where a practice of introspection is like, hey, where did that thought come from? And why?
And a lot of our thoughts and a lot of things that we think about ourselves come from, our early years as a child. You're told a lot of things and they just become a part of you. Like, a child who, maybe was an only child and didn't really play a lot, so wasn't really very social, just made to believe that, he just likes to play by himself. And then you just grow up, to become that person that believes, I'm not social, I don't really like people, I'm an introvert, and you now take that into your adult life and into the corporate world. And so we take that to work, to school, to church, everywhere you go. And sort of becomes a part of you. And people like that, they don't become great communicators because they weren't really given an opportunity to speak, to share, to socialize. And that's a huge part in becoming a great communicator as well, because you need to really ask yourself, why am I this way? Why do I feel I can't speak to 10 or 15 people in a room? Why do I feel like I am shy? Why can't I, stand up and hold the microphone and give a toast at my friend's wedding? Right? So, those are the things we need to really ask ourselves. Have we told ourselves that we are shy when we're not? Right? Have we told ourselves that we have the fear of public speaking when we don't? Right? And these are skills that are required now, actually, in to make it far in your career. You should, you're going to have to take up roles that are going to make you to speak to people, to facilitate sessions and make presentations. So there are things you can't exactly run away from at some point in your life.
Totally agree. And I bet you run into this all the time as a career coach with somebody trying to level up in their career, get a new job, get a raise. All of that requires communication. We're one conversation away from a different life. I truly believe that. And I also believe that everybody is perfect at communication. It's just unlearning beliefs that they aren't already perfect at communication. Fundamental abilities that we have from being a baby. Like a baby is a perfect communicator. It's like, I'm happy, I'm sad. Like, when did we stop communicating with the fundamentals, with our biological needs, and then incorporating the positives like spiritual needs, like connection and supportive friend groups and a symbiotic social life that serves you and you feel like you're adding value to it. There are things that are imperative to the human psyche that aren't even part of communication skills in our modern day interpretation of them. It's all about the human experience. Communication is human experience. And one of the things that I tried to do with my work is really incorporate that into, it's not just skills, which is why in my ebook I put the mindfulness and intention and introspection, is that, if you're going to be a great communicator, you have to understand how you work as a human and how others work as a human. You can start connecting the dots of the similarities you have rather than the differences.
Right. So with communication, a very vital part of communication is listening, right? How can we adopt, great listening skills to make us, better communicators?
I mean, listening is so, I feel like it gets convoluted. what the fuck is oh, can I curse? I'm sorry. I'm just gonna move on. What is active listening in the first place? Like,
Yeah.
Like, what is that? I believe there's just listening, and there's being, there's being great at it, and there's being someone who can improve. There's no bad no bad listeners. And the reason that there might be a bad listener, or you believe that you're bad at listening, is because there's a lot of mental chatter going on, and you can't let the dust settle in your mind so you can take in what somebody else is verbally and non-verbally communicating with you, or trying to communicate with you, and then responding to it effectively, asking a follow-up question. Mirroring is a big skill that if you Google listening skills, they'll tell you to mirror. And yeah, but like, what the fuck is mirroring too? Like, what are these things? Why isn't there just listening? And the inability to listen is thinking that you know better about what somebody's going to say than they do, which is not the case. Because again, if communication is a transference of one internal world to another, how could you possibly know what that person's going to say, or what they're going through, or what they really mean by something, and you don't understand it? Saying, can you say that again a different way? I'm really trying to focus on what you're saying, but I really want to fix this for you. Can you tell me more about it? And maybe even being honest about what's going on in your head in front of somebody else.
Yeah.
How you can lower the mental chatter and just be. It's a very intimate thing to listen. And if we're afraid of intimacy for whatever reasons, which break that down, then we'll be afraid to actually listen to somebody and actually be heard, and stop whatever's going on in our own heads and make it about the other person.
Yeah. And, that brings me to my next question, which is, asking questions. So asking great questions also makes you a great communicator, because you want to make sure that, when you hear someone, they say something or they show you by nonverbal communication, you want to clarify, you want to make sure that, tell me more, those kind of ways that, you ask why, just to make sure that whatever they're transferring to you, you understand that and you clarify it. So how does, asking good questions help us to become better communicators?
So asking good questions, what is a good question? And breaking down your intentions again. Are you trying to get something from someone? Are you trying to direct the conversation? Are you trying to, or are you just there to be present and listen? And I believe that there's just asking questions, and there's just intention behind the questions. Two things at play. And a good question, or a good interaction, or a positive interaction, will be a positive question. A question that shows the person that you're understanding, or that you've listened, or that you haven't listened and that you want to understand. So you might say something like, tell me more. There's your way of going about it that is very subjective. And so my questions will be different than anybody else's questions.
Yeah.
Somebody just heard that I said the F word.
Of course.
I'm sorry. I'm not sorry. It's fine. But yeah, so asking good questions is really your interpretation of what the person is saying and the direction that you want to move the conversation in. Again, I'd say that, the questions will be directed by and governed by your intentions. And if you're not dialed into your intentions, then you'll ask random questions or no questions at all, or questions that change the subject rather than continue the subject that you're on. It might be out of nervousness rather than out of intention and mindfulness. It'll be a very sporadic kind of conversation because your inner world is sporadic and you don't know what to say. So those are some obstacles of asking questions. And then to ask good ones or positive ones or whatever meaning you want to, or label or adjective you want to put on them, would be just asking questions that are intentional and positive. And live out of your core values. Are you asking questions to like devil's advocate somebody, and are they going to respond to that positively? Would you respond to that positively?
Yeah.
Empathetic about, you know, what kind of questions would you like to answer? And the likelihood that you ask that question and then somebody will ask you, how about you? And then you get to answer that kind of question. So there's lots of different ways to go about it.
Yeah. So when, you know, we're talking about, you know, the communication, so when we have the intention for our communication, and you know, we're confident, and you know, we're mindful about what we say. When we listen, we ask good questions, we're sort of steering the conversation, or we're communicating the right way. So how do we exit, you know, the conversation? How do we exit, communication? How do we make sure that we've communicated, you know, effectively? You know, we heard them, they heard us, and, you know, we can say that communication has happened. You know, how do we sort of, you know, exit from that communication, you know, that situation or that conversation, knowing that, you know, communication has happened?
It's a really interesting way that you just said that. How do we know that communication has happened? Yeah, how do we know? And I hate to keep putting back that it's a subjective thing, but how do you know that I'm answering your question because I understood it? Like, we're doing it right now, and I could repeat it back at you. That's a great question. How do I know that communication has happened? Is me showing you that I learned I understand what you've said. I'm giving it some thought. I'm repeating it back to you. And now I'm going to take some time to thoughtfully answer.
Yeah.
So that's like literally how it works. You can do that and be like, and I would feel good about ending the conversation saying, you know, it was so great chatting with you. Thank you so much for having me here. I'd really like to go get a coffee. I don't know. And thank you. And so ending it with, you know, my intentions were to have a positive interaction. I don't need to stray from that. I need to maintain, and I can be mindful of having a positive exit by saying something positive and not rude. Don't be a dick.
Right. Yeah.
And
yeah. Okay. So my question would be to, like, for people who are sort of they're shy, or they're kind of drawn back to talking to strangers. Say, for example, they wanted to reach out to someone like on LinkedIn, or, you know, or Instagram, or wherever. Maybe maybe they're trying to network. Maybe like I'm new in my city and I'm trying to make new friends, or network with people in my industry. Maybe I'm trying to see how I can get into this new industry. I'm new in this country or this city. What are some tips you would give, people who are, in this phase, but, they also have this anxiety towards talking to strangers?
My advice is to break it down.
Okay.
If you are socially anxious, write down socially anxious. And then write down all the things that you're afraid of, all the things that come up, all of your fears. Name them, and then break them down. Being new in a city, for example, starting a new phase of your life, making new friends, reaching out to people requires bravery and courage. Not just communication. Communication requires bravery and courage. And risking being misunderstood and misinterpreted. And that's where being able to stand in your own self-advocacy, self-worth, self-inquiry, self-referential, all of those things, self is the core. If I am trying to make a new friend and I reach out, I know for sure that I'm going to not be rude. I'm going to be as polite as possible. I'm just going to tell them, hey, my friend said that you would be a great person to connect with. I would really love to pick your brain about something or take you out for coffee. And that's it. And then leave it. My intention is clear. My intention is specific, positive, in my view. Obviously, positivity can be interpreted different ways. But I can't be worried about how it's interpreted. I have to do my best to be thoughtful and clear. And then after that, it really depends on the other person, because no one is obligated to be my friend. No one is obligated to talk to me. No one is obligated to give me a job or network or give me money.
Yeah, that's true. Yeah.
And in that same breath, I personally don't want to be obligated to anybody either. So there's a level of empathy that comes with understanding that as long as I have a want, but that want requires somebody else's permission. And at some level, once my intention is put out there clearly, there is a level of invitation that needs to come. So being mindful of what I'm doing and of my intention, and mindful of my expectations of what I think should be happening. And if I'm afraid of all of these things, then it's warping my positive intention and outlook and optimism of said interaction. And that's going to be the basis for my relationship? No way. I don't want that. I want something based off of what I actually wanted for myself and invited somebody else into, and see if they RSVP'd.
Yeah. Right. Yeah, that's so true. And, when you talk about communication and, reaching out to people being, bravery and courage, that's true, because a lot of people also fear rejection. I messaged this person, they read my message, never replied, they never got back to me. I asked if we could have coffee. I'd like to just ask a few questions. I asked if I could get 5 minutes to, get some information, and they ignored me and I was rejected. And, and that kind of makes them, not want to, keep trying. So that bravery and courage is important. And also knowing that they're not obligated to. So just be polite, make your intentions known, and, let them respond, right? Let them RSVP, like you say, if they also want to, talk to you or anything like that. Great. Wow. Fantastic. It's been great learning from you and, your perspectives on, how we can, become better communicators. And of course, it gets better with time, with practice and learning and really understanding ourselves. Communication, it's such a personal thing that you need to know what works for you. I know that my communication styles, you know your communication styles, but we also need to know that we have to adapt to other people's communication styles, especially when we're in the workplace, right? People have different communication styles. I like, face-to-face chats. I like to meet up over lunch, over coffee, not being too formal, but that's how I like to engage with people that I work with. Some people are very formal. Some people like written communication. So there's, different communication styles for different people,
And what I say to that, I have a friend who is writing up a template for somebody to learn how to communicate, and send out an email to a potential boss. And she put in the instructions, make this your own, add your own flavor. And I gave her some feedback on it, and I said, can you instruct on how to actually accomplish that? What is my style? What's my communication style? How might my communication style be interpreted by others? How can I use kind of cognitive empathy to observe or think about what I'm saying might be interpreted? And is that what I'm actually trying to do? Should I be more thoughtful on how this should be received? there's so much more to just my style. We need to learn who we are.
Yeah.
Things. So our communication becomes more fluid and organic, because when we force it, or we have all of these barriers of authenticity in the way, it's more about like, I'm authentic just like as I am in my skin. It's what the world tells me I should be, I'm expected to be, what my parents should be, what my faith says I should be. Goodness gracious, what walking down the aisle in CVS expects me to be and look like.
Yeah.
All of those things play a subconscious role in how we present and view ourselves. And how we view ourselves is how we view others, and how we view our lives, and how we view everything. So it is the most important thing to understand where those influences are coming from that like get in the way of authenticity, so we can not put on blinders, and go about life like uninfluenced, because we want to be influenced. We want to absorb the positive things. There's so much good in the world too. So it's not necessarily about going through life with blinders on and not absorbing anything, but it's being aware of what it is we're absorbing, what's true for us about it, and what are we going to keep about what we're absorbing. And if we don't want to keep it, then it doesn't need to be swimming around in there. We can remove the clutter, which is where mindfulness practice comes in the most practically, is like, oh, this isn't even mine. Take it out. Gross. This is not useful.
Yeah. Fantastic. Absolutely. Thank you so much, Rachel. It's been fun chatting with you and learning about, your tips and strategies, and really how to really be introspective, and, really think about, how we communicate, and how to use this, I want to call them, I don't want to say points. I want to say they're like triggers, right? That help me, know, am I communicating right? What should I do in this instance? How should I respond? You really, like you said, letting all that mind chatter go, and being confident in my response, and not thinking, oh, am I going to sound intelligent? Am I going to sound nice? Is that going to be politically correct? All the things that we have to think about before we communicate. And then, of course, adapting to different communication styles. So thank you so much, for your time today. It's been fun having you here. And Rachel is going to be at the mastermind as well. So where she's going to be teaching more about communication. Any final words, Rachel, before we say goodbye?
I have so many words. Goodness gracious. If anybody would like to personally email me and have any further discussion or questions on these things, I love conversation around these topics, to break them down, the nebulous of thoughts, and the ambiguity around communication skills. I love picking apart. So if anybody has anything that they want to further the conversation on, my email, is it around somewhere in the details, or should I type it in the box or something here?
Yeah, you can type it in the box. You can, or I can also paste it afterwards as well. So
okay, cool. Yeah, that's my final word. I'm like, this does not have to end the conversation.
Right.
I'm so grateful that you asked me to make this available, and I'm so glad that somebody of you guys asked questions, and I hope this was helpful to some of you.
Right. Yeah, it was. And thank you, Larry, for your comments. Yes, it was insightful. A different perspective into how to become better communicators. So on that note, is goodbye. Have a wonderful weekend, everyone. See you next time. Bye.
Bye.